I'm Jeremy Sladen. Thank you for watching J. Slay Made in the USA. You're about to watch part one of an investigative video series called COVID-19, The Great Reset, and the Branch Covidians.
Normalcy only returns when we've largely vaccinated the entire global population.
This will be the new normal until a vaccine is developed.
Until we find a vaccine, going back to normal means putting lives at risk.
We need to produce it and to deploy it in every single corner of the world.
Full vaccination of our children and pregnant women.
Development of new vaccines, therapeutics and diagnostics.
And more effective vaccines and therapeutics are developed.
We've already bought the syringes. We already know where it's going to happen. We're thinking about what that's going to be. It's all part of this plan.
The moment you've been waiting for is here. It's time for you to go get your vaccination. And get it today.
We've all had these moments. Moments that stop you in your tracks as a glitch opens up in the matrix and the free-thinking part of your brain tells you once again that the entire COVID-19 narrative just doesn't add up. These moments come to us for different reasons. Perhaps you consider yourself a progressive Democrat, but the duplicitous nature of enforcing lockdowns and vaccine mandates on Americans, while the southern border is left wide open, has caused you some concern or confusion, maybe embarrassment. Or perhaps you are apolitical but health conscious, and as you've been cross-referencing recent medical studies, you're surprised that your discoveries appear to contradict most of the mainstream headlines. Or perhaps you consider yourself an economic conservative and Christian who quietly voted for Donald Trump in 2020, believing that at the end of the day, both sides want what's best for America. But after what you've witnessed both at home and abroad for over a year, you aren't so sure anymore. So, you allow your mind to pull at the loose strings of the mainstream COVID narrative, and as it unravels, you follow the rabbit trail where it leads, maybe visiting some obscure news websites, connecting dots that you just can't quite disconnect anymore. Or perhaps listening to an interview with a formerly respected doctor who lost their entire career for promoting hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin. And you begin to think, what if? What if? And as the logical brain begins to think through how big the lie would have to be in order for everyone from Fauci to your family doctor to be either complicit in the lie or deceived by it. The phone rings, or the baby cries, and it's back to business as usual. Nothing changes, and the memories fade. So, before we fully dive in, I want you to know in each video I'm going to do two things at the same time. On the one hand, I'm going to be providing some spiritual and biblical insights, as well as publicly available factual evidence. This includes following the money, the people, the pathogens, and vaccines around the continued COVID-19 hysteria. We're also going to discuss the emergence of the loyal masses who have made blind allegiance to the mainstream narrative, their religions. You know them well because we see them every day. These are the folks that like to mask up in their cars, in public parks, and even while reporting the news when they're outside with nobody around. On the other hand, we're going to play a game. I'm going to be dropping in numbers throughout this video at random. And if you desire to make a comment below, I require the sum of these numbers to be sent to me by direct message. This number game is directly related to our subject matter, and I want you to please see the description below for the specific game rules. There are prizes involved. So let's begin. Who are we to question the narrative? Well, reason number one on why we should, our Tennessee Constitution, which is reflective of the federal Constitution, says that we should. So Article 1, Section 2, that government being instituted for the common benefit, the doctrine of non-resistance against arbitrary power and oppression is absurd, slavish, and destructive of the good and happiness of mankind. So in all reality, it's our constitutional duty to not only question our government, but to resist. especially if the power grab feels arbitrary. Personally, I've got to say, I've seen more destruction of happiness and goodness ever since Americans began to let Google and government do their thinking for them. How about you? Reason number 2. Now, with all the expert and media contradictions, we've all had to go down one rabbit hole too many. I know I did last week, and I'm sure you're going to understand this story and identify with it. A good friend sent me a video last week, which led to one of those 15-minute rabbit holes where I was like, this can't be real. I was seeking out the truth about some draconian government activity that seemed to fly in the face of all logic. And this time, I'd had enough. So that turned into a 30-hour deep dive investigation, which formed the basis of this entire video series. So I want you to come down the first 15 minutes here with me to show you the reasons why we can't just walk away from these discoveries. It's time to stay awake. Did you know 3 of those kids that were at the stadium have died since they were vaccinated 2 weeks ago? Did you know 4 other children have died from not being able to be seen by their local hospital due to the lockdowns on transportation? My guess is you don't know that. So following this, I listened to the Minister of New Zealand speak as if the world was ending and enforced another lockdown of the entire country from a single case of coronavirus being reported. A single case. Is this logical? Is this destructive of the good and happiness of mankind? So with this extreme overreach being done in first world countries across the globe, and to somewhat of a lesser degree in the U.S., which I'm including here, pregnant mothers aren't treated by hospitals sometimes because they're not vaccinated. Parents are thrown off planes because their 2-year-old won't tolerate a mask. I know in my heart that the next degree of insanity, just like in Australia, is coming for America. Why? Because there's too many high priests of the Covidian religion that desire this type of dystopian control under the guise of safety, your safety. But here's the problem. Right now, half of the American people cherish freedom, and they're staving them off for the time being. So these great reset power players, they don't want to move too soon or too fast with a population that has their own guns and believes the Constitution holds more sway than a government or medical institution that acts in opposition to it. Consider for a minute our own administration's head and where they're at right now. Just consider where our own administration's priorities are right now. Think of these implications. So 2 weeks ago, Biden's Department of Homeland Security briefing aired a summary on national television. While we have a wide open southern border, while Afghanistan is under complete control of the Taliban, Israel's been under attack. They said that people who have opposition to COVID measures are the number 1 domestic terror threat. Number 2 is if they question the election. So I guess I'm twice as bad as the Taliban. Does this make sense to you? I'll submit to you that it doesn't even make sense to Joe Biden, because he knows and his administration is following a plan that has little to do with America ever being a city on a hill. This plan and the minds behind it despise half our country. Obama's Secretary of Defense from
And so what they have done is they've decided that there's an approved narrative.
In 2010, the Rockefeller Foundation released a 54-page document called Scenarios for the Future of Technology and International Development. Page 18 features the pandemic scenario, Lockstep, a world of tighter top-down government control and authoritarian leadership, with limited innovation and growing citizen pushback. China's government was not the only one that took extreme measures to protect its citizens from risk and exposure. During the pandemic, national leaders around the world flexed their authority and imposed airtight rules and restrictions, from the mandatory wearing of face masks to body temperature checks at the entries to communal spaces like train stations and supermarkets. Even after the pandemic faded, this more authoritarian control and oversight of citizens and their activities stuck and even intensified.
It's the United Nations in lockstep with the World Economic Forum. In what they are boasting will be the great reset of all our economies and of all our personal liberties.
Now is the historical moment, the time.
This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset.
It is an opportunity we have never had before and may never have again.
We must not miss this unique window of opportunity.
Reading from the COVID-19, The Great Reset book by Klaus Schwab and his co-author, if no one power can enforce order, our world will suffer from a global order deficit. Think about that, reread that sentence. If no one power can enforce order, our world will suffer from a global order deficit.
In short, we need a great reset.
But how do the World Economic Forum and the United Nations intend to bring about this great reset they keep promising us? Well, they need national and state governments and other bodies to play along. And one of the key tools they are using is a three-word slogan: Build Back Better.
We will build back better from the COVID crisis.
Build it back better.
To come back stronger and build back better.
Build Canada back better.
Build Back Better has bizarrely been the slogan for all sorts of different political groups around the world. Bill Clinton used it to promote the Clinton Foundation after the Haiti hurricane disaster.
The recent cholera outbreak serves as a stark reminder of the urgency we face to address the strengthened reconstruction efforts in Haiti to help the people build back better.
Haitian activists staged a protest outside Hillary Clinton's Manhattan office. The demonstrators claim billions of dollars were stolen through the Haiti Reconstruction Commission headed by Bill Clinton. They also say Haiti was used as a cover for foreign governments to funnel kickbacks of possibly hundreds of millions of dollars through the Clinton Foundation.
Given that Clinton himself was the one who coined this term, Build Back Better, there's been very little transparency and accountability despite all these buzzwords, sustainable development, community consultation.
Any disaster can be the perfect excuse to build back better by using the money that should be going to disaster relief to instead subsidize the UN agenda at the same time as making renewables investors very rich.
So behind the great Haiti disaster story, that is used
Now let's take a look at a few of the most commonly used fact checkers, beginning with Snopes. The husband and wife duo
100% correct. Judy has never been charged with any crime.
Facebook's fact-checking arm, PolitiFact, is owned by the Poynter Institute, which has received substantial funding from big pharma allies such as Google and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Like Snopes, PolitiFact has a history of misleading the public. In late January of 2019, PolitiFact, Snopes, and FactCheck.org raced to squash the notion that coronavirus and its treatments were patented. They reviewed only 3 of the 4,452 publicly available patents, which unmistakably show that SARS coronavirus detection and treatment had been widely patented by both the public and private sectors.
Facebook's founder pledged to the WHO, saying they would remove false claims and block exploitative ads.
They're working with the World Health Organization and with the NHS, so they have a hotline, if you like, from those official sources.
Wikipedia is the go-to destination for introductions to people, places, and things. Wikipedia is supported by the Wikimedia Foundation, a non-profit parent organization with a long history of politically tied funders. Many named, many anonymous. What exactly does a Wikipedia donor receive in exchange for their generosity? What began as an unbiased open-source platform is now weaponized to undermine the work and reputation of anyone deemed a threat to its stakeholders. And once they smear you, they lock you out for making corrections to your own bio. In summary, most independent fact-checkers are neither independent nor factual. Simply put, they are political spin machines.
And so what they have done is they've decided that there's an approved narrative.
In 2010, the Rockefeller Foundation released a 54-page document called Scenarios for the Future of Technology and International Development. Page 18 features the pandemic scenario, Lockstep, a world of tighter top-down government control and authoritarian leadership, with limited innovation and growing citizen pushback. China's government was not the only one that took extreme measures to protect its citizens from risk and exposure. During the pandemic, national leaders around the world flexed their authority and imposed airtight rules and restrictions, from the mandatory wearing of face masks to body temperature checks at the entries to communal spaces like train stations and supermarkets. Even after the pandemic faded, this more authoritarian control and oversight of citizens and their activities stuck, and even intensified.
It's the United Nations in lockstep with the World Economic Forum, in what they are boasting will be the great reset of all our economies and of all our personal liberties.
Now is the historical moment, the time.
This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset.
It is an opportunity we have never had before and may never have again.
We must not miss this unique window of opportunity.
Reading from the COVID-19, The Great Reset book by Klaus Schwab and his co-author, if no one power can enforce order, our world will suffer from a global order deficit. Think about that, reread that sentence. If no one power can enforce order, our world will suffer from a global order deficit.
In short, we need a great reset.
But how do the World Economic Forum and the United Nations intend to bring about this great reset they keep promising us? Well, they need national and state governments and other bodies to play along. And one of the key tools they are using is a 3-word slogan: Build Back Better.
We will build back better from the COVID crisis.
Build it back better.
To come back stronger and build back better.
Build Canada back better.
Build Back Better has bizarrely been the slogan for all sorts of different political groups around the world. Bill Clinton used it to promote the Clinton Foundation after the Haiti hurricane disaster.
The recent cholera outbreak serves as a stark reminder of the urgency we face to address the strengthened reconstruction efforts in Haiti to help the people build back better.
Haitian activists staged a protest outside Hillary Clinton's Manhattan office. The demonstrators claim billions of dollars were stolen through the Haiti Reconstruction Commission headed by Bill Clinton. They also say Haiti was used as a cover for foreign governments to funnel kickbacks of possibly hundreds of millions of dollars through the Clinton Foundation.
Given that Clinton himself was the one who coined this term, build back better, there's been very little transparency and accountability despite all these buzzwords, sustainable development, community consultation.
Any disaster can be the perfect excuse to build back better by using the money that should be going to disaster relief to instead subsidize the UN agenda at the same time as making renewables investors very rich.
So behind the great Haiti disaster story, that is used.
Have said has nothing to do.
Produce, placing the conception date at least 1 year prior to the actual pandemic.
Yes, I just find it a pity that we haven't been able to get any benefit for the girls who suffered,
We would see an outbreak before the end of 2020 through experimental vaccine programs.
Here in the United States, really, it's going to be Black people who really should get it first, and many Indigenous people.
Taught to us that it was safe, it was
developed cancer.
Forces thousands of people to lose their homes, supporting child labor, defrauding and neglecting patients in need of medical care. The Gates Foundation has not provided details.
It's the third and Melinda French Gates.
As a top donor to both the WHO and the CDC, no one man has more power than Bill Gates to
dollars in taxpayer money, and yet both companies have said they will not sell the vaccine at cost. They're going to make a profit on it. Should pharmaceutical companies profit off this vaccine research that taxpayers have helped fund?
The Bayh-Dole Act failed the American people because rather than standing on the shoulders of giants, we now kneel at the feet of greed. My systems flagged anomalies when I started seeing nonprofits and corporates and cover. Our first red flag came out when we read the World at Risk scenario. Now, there is an organization called the Global Monitoring Preparedness Board. This organization is a part of the World Health Organization, and this board includes Dr. Elias from the Gates Foundation and Anthony Fauci from NIAID. These two individuals, plus the director of the Center for Disease Control in China, come out with a recommendation that says that by September 2020, 2 global pandemic preparedness exercises have to be completed. And one of them has to be done on the release of a respiratory pathogen. That then gave rise to an October event, Event 201.
On behalf of our partners in the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Event 201 took place 5 months before COVID-19 was declared a pandemic. The participants of the event are some of the same people that are now deeply involved in the real pandemic and profiting from it as well. Event 201 was a scripted, multi-camera, live event that was broadcast. Even Bill Gates, a man with no medical training, knew it was coming.
If we start now, we can be ready for the next epidemic.
Every single thing that you have seen play out in front of your eyes all of them laid out in their tabletop exercise. Is that wonderful universe of improbabilities where events just co-emerge and then nature conveniently backs itself into our architecture. That's the scenario we're supposed to accept. Brilliant.
Some countries have banned travel from the worst affected areas.
The president has made a decision to suspend all travel to the United Kingdom and Ireland.
Dis and misinformation circulating over the internet.
Across the world, misinformation about the virus is being shared online.
A significant demand for N95 masks and gloves are on the rise.
The demand for N95 masks to prevent the deadly airborne virus has surged.
We could eventually have 52 million treatment courses per year, but it will take many months to get there.
We're still many months out from having something that we can really deploy to the public.
And 65% of those polled are eager to take the vaccine, even if it's experimental.
A new poll finds that 49% of Americans say they would get a COVID-19 vaccine should an effective one be discovered.
I'm curious, who wrote the Event 201 script? If the visionaries of the event knew, at least 1 year in advance, what was needed, why didn't they take care of those things? Considering that Bill Gates has donated half of his fortune to make the world safer, why didn't he help to better prepare our hospitals and frontline?
And then the final solution, which is a year to 2 years off, is the vaccine. So we've got to go full speed ahead on all three fronts.
Just to head off the conspiracy theorists, maybe we shouldn't call the vaccine the final solution. Maybe just the
Good
best
point.
solution. Okay.
Yeah, the return to normal solution.
When the heat gets hot in 2014 and 15, what do?
So in this case, the out-of-control government happened to be Australia. Now, you probably have seen some of these videos, but whether you have or haven't, come down this rabbit hole with me for a minute. Look at these citizens being beaten in public parks for not wearing a mask. You know, massive protests are erupting all over the place because there's helicopter flyovers trying to ensure that no one leaves their house further than 1.5 kilometers. Children are being pepper sprayed in grocery stores for shopping without a mask. And a professional sports stadium was even rented out recently by the Australian government, this about 2 weeks ago, in order to haul in 24,000 kids to vaccinate them with no parental supervision allowed, no parents allowed. Let's take a look. Now, I find that to be quite slavish and absurd, don't you? Did you know 3 of those vaccinated kids have died in the last 2 weeks? Probably not. Following this, I listened to the Minister of New Zealand speak as if the world was ending and enforcing yet another lockdown of their entire country from, get this, a single case of coronavirus being reported. It's almost like one case, full tyranny. Is this logical? Is this destructive of the good and happiness of mankind? Now, with this extreme overreach being done in first world countries, and to a lesser
van slides the door open and says, "Hey, kids, you want some free candy? You want some free soda?" No, it's the government. It's the government and it's the mainstream media, just right there. "Hey, kids, you want some vaccines? Come on in." And it's not a van. It's a professional sports stadium. You know, because you can only kidnap and molest in.
I want to stress that to the mums and dads, your children will be well looked after inside when they arrive. They'll be literally ushered. We'll have nurses, we'll have some of the youth command, we'll have some of the young police from the various operations within police there just to guide them through as to where they go. They'll be looked after every moment inside the stadium, and they'll be well cared for. So mums and dads feel secure. We've got about 24,000 students we're aiming to get through next week. The messages will come out this week, and the opportunity is there, but really you've got to take it, grasp it with both hands.
Stay local and do not congregate. Don't talk to your neighbours. Please keep to your bubbles. It comes down again to those very simple principles. We know from overseas cases of the Delta variant that it can be spread by people simply walking past one another. So keep those movements outside to the bare minimum, wear a mask, and make sure you keep up that physical distancing.
And, you know, we're a civilized human species in the year 2021, but, you know, you gotta just doesn't.
So speaking of despising half the country, did any of you see the tweet recently from Obama's U.S. Secretary of Education where he compared the unvaccinated to the Taliban, like right now while all this is going on? So needless to say, I'm shocked at the power of mainstream media, social media, Google, and the fact checkers that back them up that have the power to overwhelm obvious truths that are right in front of the faces of the people. And they tell us we cannot believe our lying eyes and to listen to the experts instead. Well, I say this dystopian narrative of lockdowns, masks, and vaccines as the only solution, it's flying right in the face of available data that we can cross-reference when looking over the last 18 months. So I'm going to wrap up reason number 2, the insanity of it all. Guys, at this point, I 100% believe this dystopian narrative of lockdowns, masks, and vaccines as the only solution, it's flying right in the face of available data that we can easily cross-reference when looking over the last 18 months. The insanity of it all just made me sick. I'd had flat out enough. The last straw was when I typed into the Google search, did Bill Gates' father head a Planned Parenthood? And I knew that he did. I was immediately greeted by 2 or 3 fact checkers like Snopes stating it was false. Their source of fact checking, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I scrolled down a bit further and found this beauty. So like I said, I'd had enough. Have you? Here's reason number 3. Are the experts trustworthy? With your freedoms under attack, even so far as taking away your right to work or travel without a vaccine. Well, the history and track record of the so-called experts and gatekeepers of information, they matter. Are they acting out of self-interest or are they acting out of interest for the citizens? We have every right to look at that track record, so let's get it on. Reason number 3. Are these experts... Reason number 3. The experts have proven themselves not to be trustworthy, time and time again. And with your freedoms under attack, even so far as taking away your right to work or travel without a vaccine, the track records of these experts and gatekeepers, they matter. Are they acting out of the interest of the citizens or self-interest? This matters, and we have every right to look at that track record. So let's get it on.